Got him! That was probably the best sighting of my birding life so far. There are many birding destinations that are beautiful and scenic. Then there are those that are far from picturesque. Locations you would never visit, if not for the possibility of seeing interesting birds. We took a trip to one of the most eclectic and least glamorous places imaginable, in hopes of finding some cool winter birds. The Dump.
Hey everybody, today we are going to the dump. So we're going to go to the Johnson Creek Landfill. And the area we're actually looking at is not the landfill itself, but an area right next to it. It's a Coles parking lot. So the idea is we'll go by the parking lot, the gulls will settle there, and we'll be able to scope them and look for some rarities. So the area is next to the landfill. The landfill brings all the gulls in, but then they kind of settle in the areas around it. So we'll see if we can find some cool gulls today.
Gulls are opportunistic feeders. They have no qualms about eating leftover scraps and can often be found around garbage dumps, where there are plenty of things for them to scavenge. During winter, many different gull species move south from the Arctic and can be found mixed in with the more common birds. As funny as it is, this particular landfill is actually one of the best places to find these rare birds in the state. Joined by our friends Chris and Colette, we pulled up to the spot where the gulls typically stage, and noticed that they were starting to gather.
There's gulls out there, which is good because they're not always here. So
how many we got?
Can't tell, they just look like little white blobs out there. There's the coals.
We honed in on the gull flock and worked out the best place to view them.
Oh, this is not where they normally are then.
They're a little bit farther over that way. That's where they were last year.
Gotcha.
You haven't been here in a few years.
It's been a long time since my last dump trip.
I feel like it's weird because it's technically not like the dump, it's adjacent. It's dump adjacent.
Yeah. There you go.
We began scanning the flock, spotting plenty of herring and ring-billed gulls, but hoping for something a little more rare.
So one of the things we're looking at out here is the wingtips. So on a Glaucus at an Iceland adult gull, they're going to have white wingtips, but the Glaucus is going to be significantly larger. And then for blackbacks, we're looking for that really dark back in the adults, but the juveniles are also kind of mocha colored like a juvenile herring gull would be. So they're a little more difficult to pick out. Wingtips are super important though, so any gulls that are behind other gulls, it's a lot harder to see. Sometimes when they get up, they'll come back down and it's kind of a reset, and you can look at birds that you weren't able to see before.
Are you enjoying your landfill experience thus far?
This is wonderful. It reminds me of tomorrow's garbage day at home.
Finding only common species in the flock, we decided to switch locations.
No luck here, so we're going to try to go to some ponds by the actual landfill, a little bit closer to it than this is. Then we're going to come back and check these gulls out again. Hopefully we get kind of a reshuffle, getting some of those gulls from the landfill coming over. When you look at the landfill, there's so many birds flying overhead, so if there's like a rare one or a harder one to find in there, it could take a while for it to actually come over here if it ever does.
We ended up in a parking lot where we could see into the actual landfill and distantly view the thousands of gulls flying and loafing around on the garbage. Shockingly, we were able to find one of the species we were looking for. Got him! That was probably the best sighting of my birding life so far. The long-distance Glaucus gull in the sea of other gulls at the dump. I just happened to be on one and it looked white, and then I kept watching for a while and I was like, that is a Glaucus gull.
Take note, go to the dump, that's what dreams are made of.
I still want to ask the dump people if we can get in there and get a closer look. In addition to the Glaucus gull, we were also able to pick out a distant great blackback gull at extremely long range. We decided to throw up a Hail Mary pass and actually asked the people of the landfill if we could go in and view the birds closer. What do you think, Derek?
It's pretty cool. I think we'll be able to pick out some other stuff too. We just need the access. So we're going to go up and ask if we can go in the dump. What a day.
Sadly, our efforts were futile.
Shot down.
Oh, what'd they say?
They said it's DNR property.
Really?
So we can't go over there.
We went back to the Coles parking lot where the gulls had shuffled around. This time we had a nice surprise waiting for us.
Lesser blackback gull. It's always nice when you can confirm the leg color. It's so hard to tell when they're really distant. I think it's sitting again. Disappointed me. I shouldn't have said I was happy with standing.
Lesser blackback gulls have bright white bodies and tails, with namesake black backs. Sometimes their backs and wings are a little more on the dark gray side, while other times they are inky black. They also have black wingtips, yellow legs, a yellow bill, and a red spot on the lower mandible of their bill. Juvenile birds look more smudgy all over, but by their first winter, already start showing more contrast between the dark back and wings and light head and body. These birds summer in the high Arctic, where they breed in some of the most northern parts of the world, including Siberia and Greenland. During the non-breeding season, they move into the more southern parts of the world, inhabiting primarily Europe, Asia, and North America, but also making it into Africa and northern South America. There are even a few reports from northern Australia. In the US, lesser blackback gulls winter in the east, especially along the Atlantic coast, where they show up in pretty solid numbers. They also reside along the shores of the Great Lakes, as well as the interior of the eastern US. They feed on an extremely wide variety of food items, including fish, invertebrates, carrion, small vertebrates, and discarded food scraps. While lesser blackback gulls are on the larger side for gulls, they are nothing compared to the size of the similar-looking great blackback gull, which holds the title as the largest gull in the world. It was great to see a fairly close-up look at this lesser blackback gull, and actually get to spend some time observing it, as it rested with the other gulls.
Probably one of the better lesser blackback gull views I've had in a long time. Gotta imagine there's Glaucus gulls that come in at some point.
After a while of scanning and waiting, the gulls got scared off, so we decided to move on.
We are now heading out. There was a car that came by and decided to turn around right where all the gulls are. So, don't know why they decided to do that, because there's a lot of area to turn around, but then all the gulls scattered and less came back, and then they were further back. So, ended with the lesser blackback gull, which is really cool to see, especially that close. And actually a pretty good day of birding here near the landfill.
Gulling at the landfill is always a hilarious experience. In a hobby full of breathtaking views and beautiful locations, it stands at the top of the list of the most strange. Although, the interesting gull species are more than worth the unfortunate sights and often smells of the location. If you like this video, take a look at one of our other birding adventures. And as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Badgerland Birding.
Right, when you scan a flock of gulls, do you prefer to go left to right or right to left?
I kind of scan gulls as I read a book, so I'll go with that left to right.